from Eskom because we are part of the same stable, and to extend my warm and sincere greetings to members of the media, those who have taken time to join us, and the many who are joining us at home just to try and understand the state of the grid. So let me just once more just express my most sincere appreciation at the members of the media for religiously attending our weekly briefings, because we use it as a platform and a conduit for us to be able to effectively communicate with the South African public. So on this is a weekly update. Of course, this week was one of the most difficult weeks in relation to the intensity of load shedding. I did make time on Tuesday for me to share with you what those causes, the causes of stage 6 load shedding is, and I did undertake previously to say that we are treating stage 6 as an extraordinary occurrence, and wherever we are, we'll take the opportunity to bring to speed the South African public on the reasons why we are at the elevated stages of load shedding. I'm going to just take the opportunity just to recap on what the situation was, what has led us to the stage 6 load shedding that we experienced for most of this week, that ended yesterday. So the first thing to make is that we are going to take all the necessary and prudent measures to ensure that we resolve load shedding in a manner that is credible, and we are not going to take shortcuts in our efforts to ensure that we are able to reduce the intensity of load shedding and over a period of time to really defeat load shedding. You'll remember that the Minister of Finance has provided a fiscal relief to Eskom, 254 billion rands, to ensure that Eskom is able to do a number of things, and chief amongst those is the need for Eskom to be in a position to maintain its fleet, so that we are able to ensure that the exploitation and the sweating of that asset continue, and we are able to benefit as many megawatts as possible. And those megawatts must underpin, if you like, the recovery effort in relation to load shedding and ensuring that we achieve energy sovereignty. Of course, the Eskom fleet is important in that calculus, that equation, because it's installed capacity, and therefore there's a need on our part to ensure that we continue to exploit that asset. And of course, there are additional areas of work that we're doing, and that's in relation to ensuring that we're able to get new generation capacity on stream, and that generation capacity will primarily be around the renewables. We've committed ourselves to a decarbonization agenda. Of course, it's in the interest of posterity and the South African economy that we are able to go that route. I'm making that point because what has been part of the legacy issues at Eskom was the inability of the entity to be able to invest a significant amount of resources on the maintenance side, because the balance sheet has been constrained over a period of time. And the submissions to National Treasury and the meeting of the minds to say that it's important that we are able to look after this precious asset resulted in that fiscal relief being received from the National Treasury. And it is on that basis that we are now beginning to accelerate planned maintenance to ensure that we are able to guarantee the consistency of supply from these generating units. We are able to ensure that they give us the maximum amount of megawatts that's possible relative to their installed capacity, if you like, their design capacity. To put it into context, when we went into the winter period, we made the point that part of our strategy was, amongst others, to taper down on planned maintenance, because we wanted to maximize the units and ensure that they were able to increase available capacity, because the number of unknowns are significant during the winter period. So the first one is the demand side. We know that it can surge up to 34,000 megawatts. So that's the first unknown, a fluctuation, but continues to be on the upside. during winter. The second one relates to the unplanned capacity loss factor. Essentially, is the unit tripping. We are not in a position to anticipate which unit is going to trip when, and therefore we remain exposed to that risk. The one area where we have control as Eskom, the collective of the technical team led by Mr. Begin Mumalo, is on the unplanned maintenance, and that's why during the winter period we took a view that we are going to reduce planned maintenance significantly. And when we presented the winter outlook, we indicated that planned maintenance will be kept at 2,500 megawatts. And then we entered now post the winter period, the period April to July. Now we are entering the warmer periods, and then we know again the unknown, that is the demand side will come down relative to the period during winter. And we're using that space, that accommodation as a result of the reduction on the demand side to ensure that we're able to ramp up planned maintenance, consistent with our submissions to National Treasury to say that we need additional resources to be able to ensure that we're able to protect these precious assets. And we know that over a period of time we have not been in a position to do exactly that. So we ramped up planned maintenance, and we're reaching approximately about 6,000 megawatts. So you can see that we then removed an additional 3,500 megawatts from the grid, and this is us controlling that exercise because it's planned. We are able to execute at the rate that we think is desirable. Of course, there are choices when we make these determinations. What are those choices in relation to planned maintenance? So the choices are as follows. The first one is to continue with that dispensation of the winter period, ensure that the significant reduction on the planned maintenance. And as you do that, the upside is that you are going to get a significant amount of generating capacity. So there will be capacity available. With that capacity being available and the generation going down, you are going to get to a situation where they significantly reduce the levels of load shedding. So that's the upside of that approach. That just ensure that we plateau at that 2,500 megawatts, don't look after these assets, ensure that we are able to produce this additional megawatts available capacity. With the generation going down, you can still accommodate, if you like, the unplanned capacity loss factor. It will not do significant amount of damage in relation to the intensity of load shedding. And then you have a semblance of a system that is performing, and of course the appreciation by business and also by households that were at the lower stages of load shedding. And in fact, at some periods, given the amount of reduction on the demand side, you could have substantial periods during the day where you don't have load shedding. So that's the upside. So that's the choice that you have. And of course, that choice means that the units continue to deteriorate. Over a period of time, you are at greater risk of these units failing. And the downside of that approach is that of course, we don't look after these assets. And at some point, it is given. So it's not a matter of just a prediction. It's given that at some point, these units are going to fail. And when they fail on their own, first, you must do root cause analysis. It's going to take you a significant amount of time for you to return these units. And when that failure of these units, of course, is going to ramp up, increase your unplanned capacity loss factor. So the intensity of load shedding, if anything, is going to be higher, but that will be much later. So we have said that, of course, that's the choice that you can make. Then there's a second option. What is that? The second option is that there's no shortcut out of this situation. We must be prudent, we must be diligent. As I explained the last time, we must stick to what we call philosophy maintenance. Essentially, this speaks to the original equipment manufacturer will determine the frequency and the rate at which you are able to, should be in a position to maintain these units, take them out, replenish them or fix them, and then put them back onto the grid. Or you do planned maintenance. We have our own assessment outside the provisions and the prescription of the original equipment manufacturer, given the expertise that the team have. They have an appreciation of some of the inherent weaknesses in some of these units, and then we determined that over a particular period of time, at one stage, we are going to take out these units on our own. The units are still producing, and then we are able to ensure that we fix them, and then we are able to return them. There's a downside to that approach of being transfixed on philosophy and planned maintenance, doing things the right way. What is the downside? The downside is that you are removing available capacity on the grid, and as you remove that available capacity on the grid, if that action coincides with additional number of units failing on their own, then you are exposed. And the only tool that will be available to us is the intensification of load shedding. So that's what he does. And so essentially we had a full appreciation of what are the inherent risks in the short term, but we're of the opinion that we are going to take those accommodate those inherent risks. Of course, we will try and ensure that there's mitigation measures, ensure that as the units fail, those that are unplanned, we are able to return them quicker, and we should be able to give you a feedback on how we are doing in relation to returning those units. But we are going to ensure that we maintain, if you like, that dispensation of a prudent approach to the resolution of this problem, and we are able to justify our submission to National Treasury, the additional resources that we have received, we are able to deploy them appropriately. So that's the risk, and that risk, of course, hit us during this week, the meeting point of ramped up planned maintenance and the units failing on their own. They took significant amount of megawatts out of the grid, and that lowered the available capacity. Of course, we do know that peak demand, peak PM demand, of course, relative to winter is still lower. Even with that equation, we couldn't resist or, if you like, avert stage 6 load shedding, and that's the instrument that we used, and the units are coming back on stream, and that's why you are seeing the lowering of the intensification of load shedding. What is the upside of this approach? The upside of this approach is that we can say with a great degree of confidence going into the future that as we have been taking out these units, as they return, we can be able to attest to the ability to continue to produce the megawatts over a sustained period of time, give us, if you like, additional hours of production, of generation, but also approximating their design capacity. So getting to what their nameplate is. So if you say that the unit should be able to give us, if you like, 560 megawatt, it approximates that 560 megawatts. So that's, as the president puts it, is a short-term pain but long-term gain. So that's the calculation that we have taken, and you'll see when I show you the numbers now. We are not relenting, at least as I stand before you now, on our quest to ensure that we are able to fix these units and ensure that we are able to come out of load shedding. And then the second area of work is around the performance of the units at Kusile. So Kusile represent what I call a critical path on our way out of load shedding. It's significant in the following sense. Because there are those 4 generating units, 3 generating units that have gone out, and we have indicated that in terms of our previous timeline, we're expecting the first of the 3 to come on stream by November, the last of the 3 to come on stream by December of this year. And we should be firing Unit 5. Unit 5, we're firing it for the first time. We should do that now in October. Of course, tomorrow we're at Kusile, going to have extensive engagement with the team, of course, led by Mr. Numalo and the capable engineering team there. What we are trying to do there at Kusile is to see that whether it's technically possible, without any compromise on the quality of the output, for us to be able to truncate the return to service of those units. It's an exercise that assignment that we had given to Mr. Numalo, and tomorrow we are going to get that feedback. So I'm saying that it sits on the critical path as our way to path out of load shedding. Because what does it do? It gives us considerable amount of megawatts. The 4 units put together should put us much closer to about 3,000 megawatts. So as we are ramping up this plant maintenance, we'll have an additional buffer of that 3,000 megawatts, and the continued improvement of some of these units are going to ensure that we have the necessary buffer to make it possible for us, as we continue with ramped up maintenance, that as other units fail, there's a degree of play accommodation of the units that are failing, and therefore you don't have to resort to the intensification of load shedding to correct or essentially protect the grid. So Kusile is an important part in this calculus, and like I said, tomorrow we're at Kusile, and we should be able to give you a comprehensive update in relation to what are the timelines, if we're still sticking to those timelines. Remember those timelines that we have shared with you of the first of the 3 units coming on stream in November and the last in December. Essentially are the timelines we have determined much earlier, and Mr. Ngumalo and the team have been hard at work to see if it's possible for us to truncate that. They've been doing that for the past 3 months or so. So when we announce if any new timelines that are earlier, it's as a result of the work that they would have done. But now we're speaking to that period of December. And then a significant event also has taken place during this period, really. That event has to do with the performance of Tutuka. You remember that Tutuka has been one of our worst performing power stations in relation to the energy availability factor. We had only 1 unit operating there, and we really want to thank the leadership of Eskom, starting with the chair of the board and the collective of the board of Eskom, Mr. Makwana. I mean, the inspired decision to appoint Mr. Ngumalo. One of the first things that he had done, as I had reported to you previously, was to look within the stable of Eskom, those general managers with significant amount of expertise, experience, and knowledge of this generating unit, and he was able to appoint Mr. Bruce Moyo, and Bruce Moyo was able to take a team of highly qualified and experienced engineers to go and address the challenges at Tutuka. As I speak to you now, Tutuka has moved from 1 unit on load, and now we've got 4 units on load. And it's thanks to the work of Mr. Bruce Moyo, of course, led by Mr. Ngumalo. So this is really a story that begins to illustrate, if you like, the accumulation of the work that we've been doing over a period of time. Of course, we did draw on some of the expertise, pool of experts that have been made available to us by the private sector through the Resource Mobilization Fund, and they are working very closely with Mr. Ngumalo and Mr. Moyo to ensure that we have these units operating and giving us the megawatts on a consistent basis. So that's one of the things that has been able to cushion us during this very difficult period, the 5 days that was. Of course, we continue with the generation recovery plan. And of course, last week we suffered, like I've indicated, significant setbacks, and we really knew that this is not going to be a very easy road to ending load shedding. There's going to be momentary setbacks, and we suffered that during the week. And as I've explained, is really largely on account of us ramping up plant maintenance, and that plant maintenance coinciding with the units failing on their own, what we call unplanned capacity loss factor. And we did see that we did have this peaking on about the 5th and to the 7th of September, Wednesday, Thursday. That's or Tuesday to Thursday. That's when we saw a significant increase in the unplanned capacity loss factor. But there's considerable amount of megawatts units that have been returned. Some of them started returning yesterday, today, and going into the week, and that's why we were able to ease the intensity of load shedding. The outlook as we speak to you now is that for the rest of the week we should be about stage 3, stage 4, as we continue to ensure that we improve on the health of these units. And of course, we do expect that Duva, the 2 units will return there. Camden, the unit will return there. Hendrina, the unit will return there. Like I said, these units are expected to return as of yesterday, today, and tomorrow going forward. We simply lifted those that are returning, of course, and then there are units that are returning out of our planned maintenance, and we will be able to share that with you. And these are big units that are going to come on stream. So the point we are making is that these ones of Duva, Camden, and Ndrina, these are the ones that contributed, if you like, to the unplanned capacity loss factor. We are returning them back, and of course the team has had an appreciation, a diagnosis of what those challenges are. And of course, as I've mentioned earlier on, Kusile is giving us a path to ending load shedding, or if you like, the intensity of load shedding going forward. Like I said, the projection going into the week is that we should be at about stage 4 of load shedding. And then in numbers terms, you can see relative to the baseline, I did say that we're using May as a baseline so that we have an appreciation of whether we're seeing an upward trend in relation to first available capacity. You can see the available capacity for the week that was significantly lower than what was the case during the baseline of May. We're at about 25,971 megawatts of available capacity versus the 27,410 megawatts of available capacity that we had in May. So what explains this 2,000 deficit, the delta lower than May, is because when you go to May, you will see that our planned maintenance was at about 3,120. When we went into the period of June, July, we even brought it much lower to about 2,500. Now, as I speak to you, as I've indicated, we have ramped up our planned maintenance so that we are able to ensure that these units continue to perform. They give us the kind of efficiency and performance that is going to give us the degree of confidence that we are able to sustain the momentum going forward. Of course, the biggest reason, like I said, on why we hit the stage 6 load shedding was these units that were tripping. And you can see that on the 5th of September, we had this about 17,297 megawatts of units being taken out. And part of the reason why we are lower today as I speak to you is that we have lowered it to about 15,000 megawatts. So we've removed 2,000 megawatts of units that have failed. We have returned them back. So the grid has got the benefit of an additional 2,000 megawatts, and that's what explains the reduction in the intensity of load shedding. And I did share with you that we are returning the units at Duva, we are returning the units at Camden, at Hendrina. As an example, there's many others that will be coming on stream, and you will see that that capacity and planned capacity loss factor, the rate at which these units have failed and taking out these megawatts will come down, and that's why our confidence in relation to the outlook going into the week that's coming. Of course, we need to manage that. If you have another occurrence of a spike in the unplanned capacity loss factor, it will call for other actions, and that action is the intensification. But where we are relatively comfortable about the prospects of us maintaining that stage 4 for the coming week. Like I said, placing a lot of confidence on the work that we are doing to continue to improve the available capacity at the other power station, addressing the issues of the partial load losses. The partial load losses is still a worrying factor. It's sitting now at 5,742 relative to the May period of 6,793. So we've been able to bring down the partial load losses by about an additional 1,000 megawatts. Again, partial load losses simply means that the units are generating, but they are not generating at their designed capacity. So we are not able to fully run these units at the speed at which they are designed for, as a result of a multiplicity of factors. Chief amongst those is the issues around us exceeding the emission parameters, the license parameters. Kendall, Krill are excellent examples of that, and Mr. Numalo with a team of engineers are working on that area, especially the area of the clocked cooling towers, to ensure that we are able to ramp up the performance of these units without exceeding our license parameters. We've got that obligation to local communities. We've got an obligation as part of our commitment to ensure that we reduce emissions going into the atmosphere and its implication on climate change. And we know the devastation that climate change is causing all over the world, especially the poor and vulnerable. So it's an area of work that is receiving attention. Of course, we are favored during this period by the fact that the PM peak is averaging lower than winter for obvious reasons. When we're in May, the baseline was 31,135 megawatts. Now, as I speak to you, the PM peak forecast, the average for the week that was approximately 29,000 megawatts. And that's what allows us, the fact that demand is coming down is giving us that degree of room for us to be able to ramp up plant maintenance. And then the unit at risk, and this is what Mr. Nxumalo is addressing with regards to plant maintenance. He's got an appreciation of the units that are likely going to fail if certain action is not taken. And that's why we are making every effort that we take out those units as part of our planned maintenance to ensure that we reduce the amount of megawatts that are at risk. Because when we say are at risk, it means that at any time we might lose these units. So we take them out before they go out on their own. We fix them. Of course, there's a degree of planning that Mr. Nxumalo and the team must do, ensure that the people with the right skills are available, ensure that the equipment that will be necessary, the components, that the replacement components are available at the workshop. There's no long lead time in relation to procuring of those. They procure them once it's ready, is able to take them out. And that's why our intention is to ensure that we reduce the amount of the units that are at risk. The one area that the team continues to improve is on the areas of outage slips, the degree to which we are able to meet our promise of retaining the unit at a particular period of time. Remember that when we entered the baseline of May, we had outage slips of about 3,478 megawatts. So we'll say to the country that unit X, unit Y at this power station is going to come back on this date, and we fail to fulfill our promise to the country, and therefore we have to do some correction in relation to the intensity of load shedding, revise our projection, because the units we're expecting to come on stream are not coming on stream at the time that we had targeted. But what the team has done, led by Mr. Nxumalo and the collective of the leadership as Eskom, is to improve our planning ability, and therefore we're bringing down, if you like, those outage slips, and we're averaging 1,226 from the 3,478 megawatts. We hit a low of about 766, so that's a target we have set ourselves, and Mr. Nxumalo and the team, I know they're doing everything possible to ensure that we are able to address and meet that promise. Again, as I conclude, now, as I speak to you, of course, the average available capacity for the week was about 25,000 megawatts. But because we have retained these additional units that had failed on their own, now when we on Friday, the available capacity was at 27,000 megawatts. As we retain the units at Duva, Camden, and Hendrina, we are going to lift that available capacity. Hence, our confidence in relation to the outlook for the week. The one area that I said will not compromise on, it's important that we do this. We accept that there's an inherent risk. It's a calculated risk that we are taking, is to ensure that we do not relent on plant maintenance. We have to fix these units to ensure that they give us the megawatts that are desirable going into the future, undermine, if you like, the size of the units at risk, make sure that when we speak to you and say that we are getting towards ending this challenge of load shedding, we speak with a degree of confidence, because we have invested both the resources in the form of money, because that's what it takes, skills and time to ensure that we are able to retain these units. Of course, we are sitting at 5,474 relative to the baseline of May of about 3,000, relative to the period of winter, June, July, which we're sitting at about 25,000 megawatts. So essentially we have doubled, more than doubled 2,500 megawatts, I'm sorry. We have more than doubled that plant maintenance, and now we're sitting at 5,474. I really need to make this point. It can't be overemphasized. We are going to do things the right way. We are going to fix these units. We are going to place to good use the fiscal support that has been given to us by National Treasury. Like I said, the short-term pain, but long-term gain. And of course, the issues around the unplanned capacity loss factor, something that is out of our control. But the more we exert ourselves, the more we invest a lot of time and resources on plant maintenance, the greater our ability to undermine the rise in the unplanned capacity loss factor, because it's a function of, amongst others, the degree to which we have not done plant maintenance, and that's why these units are failing on their own as we speak, but we're confident going forward. So as I conclude, before we take questions, is that we do make the point that Kusile sits on the critical path. It gives us a path to ending load shedding, and that's why it's important that when we provide you, we'll give you an extensive brief next week Sunday, but tomorrow we're at Kusile, and we have invited you to come and share with you the kind of progress that we're making, and so that you also have an appreciation. Seeing is believing, to see that we're making the kind of progress that we had promised to make, and in fact, I'm confident that Mr. Ngumalo and the team are even exceeding those targets. But let's wait for tomorrow once we get that formal briefing, and we should be in a position to make the formal announcement there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister, for the insightful and detailed update. It brings us to our media question and answer session, where we will start with the journalists that are in-house, and it will be followed by questions that have been sent to the GCIS Media Updates group, WhatsApp group that is. The Minister, as he's indicated, is joined by Mr. Ngumalo, who is the head of generation at Eskom. We also have Mr. Silas Zimu, the advisor in the Ministry of Electricity. We also have Ms. Daphne Mokoena from Eskom. We joined also and supported by the acting CEO at GCIS. By a show of hands, can we proceed with the question and answer session? Can you kindly please, upon taking the microphone, introduce yourself and the media house that you represent? I see 2 hands. 3.
Thank you, Antoinette Robert from Rapport. Minister, we've heard for many years that maintenance will be increased, that maintenance is priority number 1, and then when you don't see an increase in performance, we were told that the quality of maintenance was not up to standard. Now, the slips have improved. Can you give us an indication whether there are still units that break down shortly after maintenance where you would have expected not to break down? And then just on Kusile, with the collapse of those chimneys, what consequence management has been done with regard to the causes for that collapse? Because it has been alleged that management was warned about that. If you could inform us about that, thank you.
Thank you. We'll take the next question.
It's Heidi Jacobs from eNCA. Minister, I just want to ask you, there's been reports about Mozambique wanting to know why Eskom has not moved on the 100 megawatts power it offered South Africa 3 months ago. Could you just give us an update on that? And then Eskom released a statement, I think it was 2 days ago, about those that were arrested at Kusile. I'm just curious to know the role of the SANDF at Kusile, if people are still doing what they are doing. And then the next question is, Eskom still doesn't have a CEO. What's the progress on appointment of that? Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi.
Good morning, my name is Ramokgopa from the SABC. I just wanted to find out about the integrated resource plan. The Minister said he will give us a little bit of an update in terms of where are we, where the rollout of that plan 2023 is concerned. And also, just looking at the fiscal support that you said you're getting from National Treasury, can you please just expand on that, if you're going to be needing more of that support, just as you push to ramp up just maintenance at some of these power stations? And also, just touches on what Heidi just asked there about Kusile and the arrest yesterday, your trip to that power station tomorrow. Are you going to be more or less getting further updates in terms of what is happening there? Is there a particular syndicate that you're picking up that has been operating within Kusile? As you say that this is, Kusile is really one of the critical stations towards your path to the ending of load shedding. Thank you.
Thank you, Katlao. After this round of responses, we'll then proceed to Takalani. Should we proceed? Takalani, do we have questions on the GCIS Media Updates group?
Thanks, Takalani. We do have a couple of questions. Maybe I may need your guidance. I think I have close to 10. Then you can guide me as to how many we can take this round.
Okay, we'll take 5 for this particular round, and then we'll come back to the other 5 for the next round.
All right, thank you. The first one is coming from Kusile and from EE Business Intelligence. The question is, Car Powership Management has indicated that they have not yet received any request to change the term of the car powership contract periods from 20 years to 3 to 5 years. Has the IPP office made this request to car powership yet? And Helmo Bruce from Independent Media. The question is, will plant maintenance be reduced this week due to the expected cold snap? And Arisha from Network 24. The Springboks are playing their opening match in the World Cup tonight. And the question is there any chance that load shedding will be suspended for this and other Springbok World Cup games? And there's a question from Kusile and again. The question is, has any extra megawatts been received from car powership in Mozambique yet, and or from other sources in Mozambique? And still from Kusile, has the interim and or final report from the International Consortium of Consultants been received by Eskom and National Treasury yet? And will this report be released to energy analysts, the media and or the public? And what should be the last for this round is from Terence Kramer from Engineering News. And the question is, did Eskom sustain planned outages of 2,500 megawatts during the past winter? Or is it ramping up maintenance so aggressively because that target was not achieved? And what is the year-on-year EAF comparison for the coal fleet one? Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues and Takalani. Mr. Mumalu will take the podium to answer some of the questions. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Just to kickstart with the questions from the eNCA, maybe that one, the issue of the energy from Mozambique, I think we did issue the statement as well during the week, is that that power has not flown in as yet. Obviously, within Eskom, as you know, as a state entity, there is a process that needs to be followed. That process is still being followed, and the team within our transmission who are dealing with that import, they are working with that process, and then we will come and announce once it's finalized. And then there was also from Antoinette, you mentioned the fact that we always talk about an increase in maintenance, but the performance is not following that. I think I need to explain that in this fashion. I think if you will recall, I think the minister rightfully pointed to Kusile. And then it also talked to the question from Terence that is asked later as well to say, what has been the EAF year on year? If you were to compare that for this first quarter of this financial year, it will not be a fair comparison. So you will have to remove Kusile from last year, and then you will have to and plus Kubek. If you recall, we said Kusile and Kubek, they've taken about 3,000 megawatt from the system this year. So that is primarily one of the biggest contributor for EAF being down. I mean, we know the issues at Kusile, what happened with the 3 units, and then also with the delay on the unit number 5 as well. So that is what has compromised the recovery that we should be seeing, from this winter. Hence, the minister rightfully said that Kusile is critical. Kubek, we don't mention it because Kubek is going to be a straight swap. So again, if you know Kubek being an above 900 megawatt station, with that off of the system, then it takes a lot, plus another 720 sent out at Kusile or 800. It takes a big chunk of our EAF away from the system. So that is the issue, that comparison on one-to-one, it becomes a bit difficult. So Kubeka indicated that it's going to be a straight swap. So we're not going to see any contribution, although we have now replaced the steam generators at Kubek, which was a major outages, but we still need to go to the second unit. Only after the second unit is back, then Kubek will go back to the normal cycle. I think you also asked a question about consequence management at Kusile. Look, we are finalizing the reports. The first internal report has been finalized. There is another report that we have commissioned that we are looking at that. And then I also want to remind the public that at Kusile, although we have we indicated that we will bring those units with a temporary stack. So the main stacks we are still also only getting now after it's been being stabilized, so that we can get access. So until we have the whole picture of what is happening, so that processes, we will follow those processes. So definitely we will deal with whatever comes from that process. And then there was also from Haiti the issue about the role of SNDF at Kusile with the current arrest. I think on this one, I want to start by also thanking our police services working together with our security teams. Remember the SNADF, they are there to protect the additional cover, but the police investigations and our security internal, I think they've done a good job to really continue to work together to deal with these remnants of people that are really undermining our effort to improve the performance. So I want to acknowledge and congratulate the police for the good work and also our security teams for arresting those individuals within Kusile, because I think it sends the right messages that the police are on the ground, so as security forces, that the people that continue to really undermine us, because those are the things that set us back. So we are quite happy that there has been some of those breakthroughs, and I think it's sending the right messages as well. Minister, the issue of the CEO, I will leave that one to you. And then Katlego, yeah, the arrest, I just talked to it as well, to say, obviously it just happened now. It's within the police structures now. So at Kusile tomorrow we will definitely give an update, because Kusile is critical for our recovery. Because apart from the 3 units, we've also got another unit. So at Kusile, as we speak now, even the unit that has been running, given the experience we have got from the other, we've taken another additional precautions that we will intervene timelessly to check what is happening. So we have taken down Unit 4 as well to do the proper inspection on the absorbers, as a proper due diligence. Minister said we will take a short-term pains, but we will not again compromise the structures for this plant. So still as we speak now, we will be in the next 3 months be bringing 5 units on load, including the one that has been running. So the plans are in place. We have got teams there. Together with the good thing with Kusile is that because it's still within the build program, our main contractor partners, they are still on site. So we have assembled a team, including of Eskom team, plus our contractor partners, to make sure that we really bring the machines as soon as possible. So we will also touch on those ones tomorrow once we have briefed the minister. Okay, the car power shift minister, I will leave those ones to you. Yeah, I think there was an issue whether the plant maintenance will reduce with the cold snap. No, the maintenance as planned now, because it's not something that, although we do reviews day to day, but the plant maintenance, most of the units are already off now. So it's not going to be easy to bring them back and deal with whatever happening as well. And then so is the question of the World Cup. We would want to have a zero load shedding, because we all want to see the Springboks play. But yeah, unfortunately, the system would not allow us to suspend the load shedding, unfortunately. So, but we are quite happy that at least we are not as bad as it was last week, and we want to continue on that trajectory of reducing it. The issue of Mozambique, I think I'll leave those ones to the minister. Yeah, I did speak on Terence on the issue of year-on-year comparisons to say, if we have to do that, we will have to remove Quebec and Kusile units, then we can do that. I think if we do that, you will notice that the year-on-year on those bases, this is much better actually than that. I think that legacy of having this 3,000 megawatt constantly, because it doesn't matter what you're doing, it built from that. Whereas last year, you were starting on the lower base, and then it was including those issues. Yeah, Minister, I will stop there on this.
No, thank you very much, Becky. Just on the issue of the import of the 100 megawatts from Mozambique. So like I said, myself and my counterpart have agreed on that. And then Eskom had to run its own internal process because there's still a governance framework there. The DMRE is fine, DPE is fine with that process. We have to tick all of these boxes. National Treasury is okay and NERSA is okay. The transmission board is the one that's outstanding, and also the Eskom board, and then we should have that benefit. But I must say that also the transmission side of Eskom, they also did make an offer that whilst we are waiting for the internal process to be exhausted, you can create a dispensation. We can buy that 100 megawatts from the South African power pool program. Power pool rather. That's one of the things that has been put forward as an immediate opportunity. But to your point, the Eskom internal process is far advanced, and we are confident that we should be in a position to benefit from that. And Heidi, on the issue again on the arrests, so SANDAF, if you come to think of it, really is a protection of the asset, the physical asset and the safety of the employees there. The part that the Eskom was referring to and what Mr. Numal was referring to, the work that has been done to nab the cartel, disrupt and undermine it, really it's intelligence driven. I did indicate that we've got work stream number 6 that is supporting us at NICOM, and that's the work stream that is doing that work together with the Eskom management and the Eskom team. They're the ones who are really leading that effort. But the SANDAF really is not in a position to determine whether this is good quality coal or not. They are not trained to do that. It's just about the physical safety of the asset and the physical safety of the employees, and undermine any potential for disruption at the national key point. But on the underlying issues that are below the surface, really it's intelligence driven. It requires a substantive amount of specialized skills to do that, and hence our appreciation at the work that is done by Eskom and also the team at the workstream number 6. On the CEO, I'll keep on repeating it. It's a domain of DPE. At the right time, Minister Godan will make that determination. Of course, first is the board. The board is the one that appoints, and then they will seek concurrence. So I'll leave that to the colleagues there. I will not enter into a domain that does not belong to me. So we've achieved the levels of cordiality working together. I'll stick on the generation side. What are we doing to get these units performing? Of course, I do accept that the issues of leadership have got a relationship to our ability to respond to this challenge. I mean, you can see now the kind of progress we've been registering is largely as a result of the stewardship of the board and the appointment of Mr. Nguma. And to Katlawo's question, I did indicate that when the powers were assigned to us, the issues of the revision of the Integrated Resource Plan 2019 was already underway, led by DMRE. So what we have chosen to do is not to disrupt a process that is already underway. And of course, Minister Mantashe has made it announced publicly that before the end of September, the IRP should be out for public comment. So we really hope that it will be out. And I know I have an engagement with him during the course of the week just to confirm that it's important that we were able to go out, get these comments so that there's certainty, if you like, on the energy mix in the country. And when we make determinations, really should be within the parameters of the IRP. Of course, we can still make them emergency determinations even outside that, but it's desirable that is governed by a framework, and the IRP provides that framework. On the issues of fiscal support, yes, that fiscal support was very explicit. You must ensure that you get to direct the investments on maintenance so that you are able to improve the performance of these units. And of course, once that fiscal support is given, it's the Eskom board that then makes a determination on the distribution of that support. And of course, Mr. Numalo has benefited as the head of generation from this fiscal support, and that's why we are able to make the amount of investments that we are making to be able to get the units performing. I did make the point that Tutuka has been operating on one unit for a considerable period of time, and it was largely as a result of the resources not being available, and the resources, both money and the kind of skills that is required. And Mr. Ngumalo, the appointment of the GM and the support team and the embedded team at Kusile, and the resources that is, the money that is coming through this fiscal support, has made it possible for us to be able to retain 3 additional units. And as I speak to you, we're operating on 4 units. On Kusile tomorrow syndicates, I'm not qualified to look after, to hunt the syndicates. We are not qualified to do that. That's why we've got that workstream number 6. As and when they make the progress, what Eskom announced is a function of that work. So it's important that we remain in our lane, the areas of competency, and to the extent that the team are able to uncover, disrupt these cartels, we do welcome it, because it's got a direct correlation on the performance of the units. It's got a correlation on the return on investments that we are making, and that's why we have to take a whole approach on the resolution of this problem. But of course, generation is a significant part of that. On the issues of the car powership, whether there has been increased contact with car powership by the IPP office, I did make the point. Again, I stay in my lane. The procurement sits with the colleagues at the IPP office. Whether they've made contact or not, I wouldn't know. But all we know is that that process has to come to an end at some point. I mean, it can't be an open-ended process. And remember, when we entered into this, it was an emergency procurement. We are 3 years into the life of that exercise. We are not seeing the megawatts, and that's why the conversation with Minister Mantashe and my peers is to say that what are the options? I mean, if there is no indication that this procurement process will come to its logical conclusion. And for us, that logical conclusion must include, amongst others, the fact that we will have certainty on benefiting from additional generating capacity. Then we have ideas on what should constitute the next options. Because also, with Kusile being on the part of the pathway to ending load shedding, it still won't be sufficient to ensure that there's energy security in the country. So it's important that we find new generating sources before we go into the next cycle of winter. Otherwise, we'll be sitting with a similar problem going forward. We have generated ideas. We know what we want as a ministry, so I just want that there has to be alignment with my peers, of course, so that, I mean, that's how we've been working hitherto, and we really want to maintain that going forward. And then, yeah, I think, like I said, the issues around the car power ship, whether we are generating anything from Mozambique is part of that answer I have given Chris in relation to the finalization of those internal processes. My task, go wherever to ensure that we're able to get these megawatts on stream. Once we're able to confirm that, Eskom must still run that process. I will not interfere with that process, but the team at Eskom, starting from the board, they do have an appreciation of the speed that is required so that we're able to relieve the country of this existential problem. On the report that has been commissioned by National Treasury, my engagement with the Minister, Minister Kodongwane, they have not yet received that final report, and the assurance he has given to me is that that report will be handed also to us so that we have some reflections on the report. Remember that report was commissioned by National Treasury before the advent of this ministry. And that's why National Treasury took a view that they also have to have a deep dive, a technical appreciation of what are the issues that are obtaining at Eskom to influence, if you like, the issues of whether there will be future fiscal support that will be required. But most significantly, just to have an appreciation of whether we're able to resolve this structural problem of load shedding. You know that part of the deterioration of the fiscal matrix in the country is principally as a result of load shedding. So they are an invested party, so they couldn't stand back and watch, and they commissioned that report. Of course, with us being in the space, we were able to lead the charge in responding to what it is required for us to be able to end load shedding. So it goes without saying that the report will be shared with us, and essentially we will be the ones primarily to respond on what the report is saying and what is advocating or proposing rather as some of the solutions to address the load shedding problem in our country.
Thank you very much, Minister and Mr. Bigingumalo. We're going to take the second and last round of questions. Takalani, can I hand over to you with questions that have been shared on the group?
Well, thank you, Zak. And the last questions, I have one here from Kusile and again from me, Business Intelligence. And the question is, please can you advise why OPEC Unit 1 is scheduled for a further shutdown of 200 days to 21st of July 2024, the day its operating license expires, and only 8 months after Unit 1 is scheduled to return to service on the 3rd of November this year, following a 10-month shutdown for replacement of its 3 steam generators and other life extension works. And there's Dinan Erasmus from Business Day. The question is, at Africa Climate Summit in Nairobi, Germany said that via its International Development Bank, it is working on a 200 million euro sovereign loan to Eskom to strengthen the capacity of the transmission grids in the northern and the western Cape and enable 2.2 gigawatts of renewables to be connected to the grid. Will Eskom be able to take advantage of this loan given the conditions attached to the Eskom debt relief plan? And can the Minister provide some detail about the infrastructure that will be funded through this loan should it go ahead. And the last question from Spelele from Business Report. The question is, was the Minister Economica with the truth when he told us in June that South Africa has secured 100 megawatts from Mozambique? Thanks.
Thank you. Are those all the questions for this final round?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. The question around Quebec, I think, as you know, that Quebec 1 should have been running by now, have we not have the delays that we have. So our plan is a 12 cycle, and then we also know that the license for Quebec as we stand now ends in July 24. So that is the critical thing that we have to deal with it. We can't be planning anything beyond that date until we've got all the necessary approvals. And then once we've received all the necessary approvals, and once also the NNR has done whatever they need to do, then we can then review based on what you are saying as well. But currently there is that plan that says we've got a license up to the end of July next year. Then you can't be planning any other things. Obviously we are working with the regulator to try and get all whatever they need to deal with the issue of life extensions of Quebec. Once that is done, then obviously Quebec need to get into the new philosophy that will determine the refueling and all of those other issues that we need to deal with. Yeah. Thanks, Minister.
Thank you very much, Peggy. No, Spelele, we have secured the 100 megawatts from Mozambique. What the process is happening, they are contracting. So we have secured that. So Mozambique here's 100 megawatts. We have signed, dedicated to South Africa, and then Eskom is contracting. So there's no economic with the truth there. And the last time, one of the briefings, I also indicated because of the technical improvements we have made in relation to the transmission lines from Mozambique, we are getting an additional 180 megawatts as a result of that interventions. And then to say Erasmus on the transmission grid. So just to say the following, there's a number of offers that are coming from a number of funding and financing sources across the globe. Also, when I was in Kenya, the climate conference now, we had conversations with multiple players who also raised their hand and indicated that they are ready to finance the grid expansion and the grid strengthening. On the sidelines of the BRICS, we also had an engagement with the new development bank, a creation of the BRICS, and they also made an indication that they've got $3 billion for the next 5 years to help finance the grid expansion. You know, the international partners groups under the auspices of that agreement emanating from the COP, there's an additional, there's a facility of $8.7 billion that they've made available. And then there's other internationally renowned banks that have approached us to say this is what is available. So we're resolving that question. How are we resolving it? We're hosting a transmission financing seminar sometime during the month of September. Of course, communication will go out. And then we're aggregating everyone in one room. So we want to understand what is first the size of these facilities that are available, what are the conditions that are available, what are the kind of structures that in the view of the financing communities will be acceptable for them to participate. We'll be in a position to share with them what are the minimums, what constitute, if you like, the floor of principles below which we are not prepared to consider any proposal. We will talk to the issues of what is required on the technical side, the Eskom part, in relation to the strengthening of the grid. How do you prioritize grid expansion. Which areas do you start with? We also in the same seminar will be learning from the experiences from other peer countries. For an example, peer in this instance, not necessarily in the same level of economic development, same level of GDP, but the peer countries from the standpoint of people who are experiencing almost similar challenges that we have, and those that have attempted to resolve them. Also on the transmission side, Brazil is an excellent example. So we have those experiences from there, and also experiences from other parts of the world. So post that transmission financing seminar, of course, we are working with the JSE. The JSE as a partner is important because it's a renowned, credible interlocutor, as we see it between ourselves and the financing community. Can aggregate all of this interest, and of course they have no interest but to ensure that South Africa succeeds. So we're hosting it with the JSE there, so that we have an appreciation of what is this broad flow of financing opportunities that are available. And out of that, then I'll generate a report and go to Cabinet and make a submission. Of course, that submission must also respond to the fact that part of the conditions of the fiscal support was that the Eskom should not go out and loan. Of course, there's a small footprint there that the Minister of Finance can consider any exceptional circumstances. I'm paraphrasing the wording, so it's not necessarily out of the picture that you can have a consideration for additional financing. But I think it's up to us to illustrate if indeed we are of the opinion that Eskom must be given that opportunity. We simply need to make that case. And I think we have benefited immensely from that conversation with the private sector, people who have invested in these spaces of transmission, their experiences other parts of the world, and what are these conditions that will make it attractive for them to participate. So that when you come out with a solution, that solution must benefit from what are, if you like, private sector interests, so that once you announce a set of interventions, how we want to attract that investment, it must in part respond to what the private sector is saying. Otherwise, you are unlikely going to attract any significant amount of interest, and then in the course of that, you are also able to protect the sovereign or national interest. So that's how we're going to do it going forward. So we will share with you, of course, some of you in your various capacities as energy experts, you will be in the room, and of course the media will also be in the room, so that you are able to have an appreciation of the complexity and diversity of the conversation, and I do hope that it will be robust, so that we come out with a solution that really is going to help us to resolve this challenge, at least on the transmission side. But let me take the opportunity to thank everyone who had made time to join us. Thank you very much. Like I've indicated, those of you who will be able to join us at Kusile tomorrow, we hope to see you there at Kusile. Those who can't, next week is scheduled briefing. In addition to the normal, if you like, update, we'll share with you in detail what has been, what is the situation at Kusile, what are the timelines, and what it means in relation to us responding to load shedding adequately. So thank you very much for it.
Thank you very much, Minister and colleagues. This brings us to the end of this week's media briefing. Thank you once again.